From Michigan Public, this is It's Just Politics. I'm Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Road funding. It's Michigan, so we have to talk about road funding.
And not the first time that we will say the legislature and Governor Gretchen Whitmer have failed to come up with a plan for roads.
Today, what comes next in negotiations?
I thought, given the early nature of some of the solutions that they were talking about, that they would get there. But as we've seen, the entire budget process has ground to a halt, and they are not even close at this point.
But first, we are a month away from the Detroit primary for the city's next mayor. The first time in more than a decade that Mike Duggan will not be on the ballot, as he's announced he is running for governor.
There are 9 candidates running to replace him. The top 2 who win next month will move on to the general election in November.
Sam Robinson is with the Michigan Chronicle, and he is the founder and writer behind the Detroit 1 Million Substack. Sam, hey.
Hey guys, what's going on?
So Sam, fill us in. Where do things stand now with a month to go?
Well, a month to go until this August 5 primary. We got votes already coming in. June 22nd, absentee ballots went out. Folks are already telling me that they have voted. Folks are voting for Santil Jenkins. She's the nonprofit CEO of Thaw. She's a former city council member. They're voting for the current city council member, Mary Sheffield, the Triumph Church pastor, Solomon Kinlock, city council member over on the west side, Fred Durhall. They're voting for attorney Todd Perkins, Joel Hashim, he's a businessman, Danetta Simpson, and John Barlow as well are the candidates. So they've got a lot of options. People seem to be excited, but will that translate into turnout? That's kind of the question that I've been mulling over the last few days. The Free Press did a really good report on why the turnout is so low here in Detroit.
Yeah, the Free Press analyzed voter turnout in the city. They actually found that the percentage of voting age Detroiters turning out in municipal elections has dropped by half in the last 20 years. Sam, do you have any sense of what turnout is going to look like in this primary when, we already know it's going to be lower than in the general election?
Yeah, one of the reasons why that is lower is that it happens on these odd years. People are not coming out because there's no governor or president to vote for. A lot of people think that some of these municipalities across the country and urban areas that have such low turnouts in Detroit, we're talking about like 13 to 18% for the primary, could they switch their election dates and actually do them on those even years? Perhaps that's possible. But a lot is going to be said about the Detroit Elections Department's efforts on getting people out. Obviously, one of the biggest efforts that happens is Janice Winfrey. She's the clerk, putting her face on a billboard, telling everybody to go vote. That gets a lot of criticism. And a lot of the people that scrutinize her efforts at the elections department since she's been the clerk will pinpoint this exact issue of very low turnout. Janice will say, what else do you want me to do? Look at not just the city of Detroit, but large cities across the country really struggle in these municipal elections. The idea that elections are decided by 80% of folks not voting, it's just terrible.
Sam, what are you hearing from voters, would-be voters, about what they want and what they're hearing from the candidates?
Certainly the theme of this mayor's race is the relationship that the city has between its downtown and its neighborhoods. You're going to hear candidates in these forums and debates talk about how there's 2 Detroits. One made up of, this executive class, one that has been stuck in these derelict neighborhoods that are overrun by blight, who have commercial corridors without major businesses. You're going to hear about issues like the Detroit Land Bank and how land use happens, property taxes, and why it's so difficult to bring large business to Detroit. And you're going to start hearing some solutions. One of them is amusement sales tax. Mary Sheffield has been a proponent of that. Santil Jenkins has said that we should enact a penny tax on Detroiters, on all Detroit sales happening within the city to generate $1 billion in revenue. Some say that nonprofits need to step up and do a better job of distributing the resources that they're given by philanthropic community. But from all the candidates, you're hearing that we want to continue the success that has happened in the city since the bankruptcy, since Duggan's tenure, which he asked people to judge him by population. Now, since he was elected, our population has gone down, but over the last 2 years, of course, a lot has been made about gaining thousands of residents. And then before that, it was, I think, 2,000 in 2023. So the next mayor is going to have their hands full in keeping that trend. So it's a lot of different dynamics playing right now.
Well, Sam, are you getting a sense on whether this primary race is in any way a referendum on Mike Duggan as mayor or his legacy?
Solomon Kinlock is the candidate that is making the most distance. Certainly him talking about a tale of two cities is completely offensive to the Duggan administration. They will even sort of they'll talk about the wealth that has been generated within Detroit neighborhoods. They'll talk about the commercial corridors that have been activated. When you talk to voters, most of them do have pretty good things to say about Mike Duggan. There is a large group of Detroiters, including, some who are pretty close to these candidates, who feel like Detroit's 80% Black. We should be represented by our own.
Sam Robinson is with the Michigan Chronicle, and he is the founder and writer behind the Detroit 1 Million Substack, keeping an eye on the Detroit mayoral race. Sam, thanks so much.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Last week, we brought you the news that a budget deal at the state capitol before the July 1st deadline had fizzled.
But it wasn't just a deal on the budget that fell by the wayside. Even a so-called aspirational deal on road funding was also not to be.
So what happens next? Michael Griffey is the Detroit Metro leader for AECom, an infrastructure consulting firm specializing in big projects like the Gordie Howe Bridge. He is also a former candidate for Congress. Michael, hi.
Zoe, thanks for having me.
And John Truscott is here. He is the CEO of Truscott Rossman and the former communications director for Governor John Engler, who helped to sell a roads plan to the legislature and the public decades ago. John, hi.
Good to be with you.
Michael, I want to start with you because you just wrote an opinion piece in the Detroit Free Press. The headline, Michigan finally considering real proposals to fix the damn roads. Considering, yes, but just can't quite seem to make it past the finish line in divided Lansing. Why hasn't a road deal happened when both sides seem to be saying, hey, we want one?
Yeah, I mean, the devil is in the details, and it's about how to pay for it. The Speaker, Matt Hall, has passed a budget plan that includes a $3 billion sustainable road funding package that's really laden with cuts. There's no additional revenue. And the governor's proposal calls for revenue generation, taxing large companies like Amazon, Walmart that use a lot of heavy truck traffic. So the part that is both sides really want it, but how to pay for it is where there's a little bit of a gap.
So, JT, we wanted to bring you back on. You were on the show back in February. This was right after Governor Whitmer had announced her road funding proposal. And as Michael just explained, the Republican House, led by Speaker Matt Hall, had introduced their plan. And back then, you were bullish that a deal could get done. What are your thoughts now?
I was very optimistic because we were both sides were talking at least in the same ballpark. And then it's just filling in the details of how you pay for it. What has happened since then is the Senate, they don't want to talk numbers until the rest of the budget is complete, which then really forces you into raising revenue, meaning taxes. And the House wants to come at it. They want roads done first within the current confines of what's available in the budget so that you don't have to talk about tax increases. And they have not been able to bridge that divide. I thought, given the early nature of some of the solutions that they were talking about, that they would get there. But as we've seen, the entire budget process has ground to a halt, and they are not even close at this point.
Michael, as you said, and as we've said, the roadblock here does not appear to be the dollar amount. Everyone sort of agrees $3 billion. That's the number that's needed. You mentioned the governor wants additional revenue. Republicans say, hey, there's already money in the budget. What should folks know about how this money should be used as we try to figure out where it's actually going to come from?
Well, I think Speaker Hall is really trying to leverage the governor's top policy priorities. Fixing the damn roads, obviously, is in a lot of ways what made Gretchen Whitmer set her on the trajectory she's on today. But also, business attraction is something that she cares very deeply about. And the worst kept secret, this Project Grit, this huge microchip processing facility that we're trying to bring to Michigan requires the SOAR tax credits. And Speaker Hall has called for the complete elimination of the SOAR tax credits so that that can go toward funding the road. So really pitting top policy priorities against each other is it feels like a political maneuver that I don't think the governor and the Senate has really figured out how to deal with.
John, you're following things in Lansing. What needs to happen now to get from stalemate to a deal and, well, hopefully this summer?
Well, I think Michael just laid it out exactly as things are going on, very, very accurately. Um, one thing, deadlines have a way of forcing decisions. We have some artificial deadlines that have been imposed. The legislature likes to get it done, get budgets done by July 1st. We're heading, careening really towards the October 1st deadline for budgets without a clear path on how to get it done. I do agree with Michael that Speaker Hall has used his leverage, used his kind of political cunning to kind of drive this debate and hold things up. So, in a debate like this, it's always good that both sides have something that they want. As Michael laid out with the SOAR funding, there is a deal to be had, but I think everybody's going to be sweating it out, really heading towards that deadline before anything gets done at this point.
We're speaking with John Truscott with Truscott Rossman, Michael Griffey of AECOM. So let's pick that question up next then, John, with this now October 1st constitutional deadline. Who makes the next move? You have been in these seats. You have been at these tables negotiating. Whose job is it, or who finally goes, okay, I'm going to lead?
It really has to be the governor. I mean, the speaker's in a position where he's the loyal opposition, really. He's got one chamber. The Democrats have the governor's office and the Senate. So I really think that the governor's going to have to call people together, but Speaker Hall does not have to bring anything to the table at this point. He can wait to see what the Senate's willing to do, what the governor's willing to put on the table. As with the SOAR funding and any corporate funding, tax breaks, whatever is on the table, there is a deal to be had. But frankly, the past grants and breaks have not been that successful in creating jobs. But I do think with this chip plant on the table, it's big enough that I think it could bring some in the House along. It may not be everything that the governor is looking for, but she can get something. But I can tell you the House is going to hold off. They're going to say we're not raising taxes for road funding. You have to give us something on that. And that's likely where the playing field is set right now.
So, Michael, where do you see the governor in all of this? The governor who made fixing the damn roads her campaign mantra.
I think John said it pretty accurately. I mean, the governor, this deal doesn't happen without the governor as the tip of the spear leading the negotiations. And, I think she, in her plan, calls for budget cuts, unnamed, unspecified budget cuts, which shows that there's a signal for common ground. I think she has it at 500 million and Speaker Hall has it at nearly 2 billion. So there's a little bit of a gap as far as how much to cut versus spending. So I think she's going to have to signal that she's willing to give on the budget cuts, and it's going to probably be pretty severe for a deal to happen. But I think she wants to definitely maintain the mega tax credits and the SOAR tax credits as well. So that's going to be the hard part. And I think she's going to have to give a little bit on both of those. She's not going to be able to have the SOAR and the mega as is today.
Yeah, when you say SOAR and mega, we're talking about business incentives that she's really put a stake in the ground on. And Michael, my question to you is, does the governor's negotiating position improve as this drags on?
I don't think so. I think Speaker Hall shrewdly is pitting an issue that the average Michigander is not going to want to see the governor fall on her sword for, to say we're not going to be able to fix the roads because the mega tax credits for General Motors stays in place. I think the longer this goes out, I think her negotiating position actually weakens.
John, back in February when you were on the show, you had said you didn't think things, meaning the roads, right, had gotten bad enough, at least for Michiganders and voters to start making such a huge deal about it, so much so to the point where lawmakers had to make a deal. Has anything changed in that regard?
No, I mean we're
Yeah.
we're in road construction season. There are orange barrels everywhere. Everybody's dealing with the delays in traveling across the state. So it hasn't risen to the level where there's public outcry. Now I know we're headed for that fiscal cliff where the funding dries up and we will not be able to keep up on the construction. But right now, when you're mid construction season, it's pretty tough to make the argument to the public that we're not fixing the roads.
And Michael, finally, what happens and when if we don't see a deal?
Well, I think it would be devastating on a number of levels. We know that Michigan has some of the worst road quality in the country, but there's also an economic piece to that. So 5 years ago, the governor floated a $3.5 billion bond that has ramped up road construction for state highways and bridges tremendously. This is the fifth and final year. That cliff, according to MITA, believes that nearly 10,000 jobs could leave the state. 10,000 highly skilled contractor workers could leave Michigan, saying that when the funds run out, the folks don't find a new career. They find a new place that actually is paying, which is in a different state. So the idea of losing 10,000 jobs, I think, should have the House Republicans, Senate Dems, and the governor moving with urgency.
That's Michael Griffey. He is the Detroit Metro leader for AECom, and John Truscott is the CEO of Truscott Rossman. Talking about what else in Michigan? The roads. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It was great to be with you.
We are done for the day. A quick reminder that you can sign up for the new It's Just Politics newsletter delivered to your inbox every Friday afternoon with all the latest happenings from the state capitol and Michigan politics. You can sign up at the website michiganpublic.org. And that is It's Just Politics for today. I am Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Let's talk again next week.